Got a lot of content to go through today with our amazing panelists. So we're going to dive right in here. So hello, everyone, and welcome to this EAMC at Home webinar, Back to Business, a look at the return to events in 2021. I'm Adam Armit, the manager of live entertainment and venue marketing at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment here in Toronto, Canada, which includes Scotiabank Arena. I'm also a board member here at EAMC and excited to have you all join us today as we continue to navigate this upside down world that our industry has been going through. We're all here learning together, and through our EAMC at Home sessions, we hope to bring a lot of knowledge from all of our members here as we go, even though we can't do so in person with our regular conference. Before we get underway, I just want to share a few housekeeping items. If you're not familiar with EAMC and just joining us for the first time, maybe this link made its way to your inbox from some friends. We're glad you're here. Welcome. EAMC is a group of professionals working in the live entertainment industry, that specialize in marketing, public relations, social media, and group sales, among many other roles. Our 40th conference was supposed to get underway in Minneapolis this last June, but as we all know, that just wasn't in the cards. So here we are in lieu of meeting face-to-face. We've done a bit of pivoting, just like every single one of you, and we've begun to offer these relevant and insightful webinars, just as I mentioned. You can view any other upcoming sessions on our website at eventarenamarketing.com. If there's any topics you'd like us to cover over the next few weeks, please join our Facebook message board and share some of those with us. We'd love to hear them. Our next EAMC at Home webinar will take place Thursday, February 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern. And the topic is Finding Happiness Through Hardship, where we join healthy lifestyle writer, motivational speaker, and positivity champion, Karen Sullivan, as she shares insights on finding happiness through hardship while taking on your passion and making it your purpose. Be sure to visit the EAMC website to register in advance in the same way that you did for today. We've also launched a new Impact Award and nominations are open for that award. Visit our website for more information on how you can submit that nomination. And lastly, if you haven't already, I encourage you to listen to our EAMC app podcast, EAMC podcast Adventures in Venueland, available wherever you get your podcasts. It explores the personal journeys and experiences of people in the live entertainment industry. And once again, if you have any questions today, please use the Q&A function here in Zoom at the bottom of your screen, and we'll make sure we pass that along to all the panelists. Now, without further ado, enough from me. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today, Eric Brown, who is an editor and reporter for Pollstar and Venues Now, and has been covering this very topic for months. Eric, over to you.
Hello, thank you, Adam, and I'm so glad to be here today and joined by all our wonderful panelists. Looking forward to a great discussion. Clearly, over the last year, as live event professionals around the world have navigated this pandemic, eventual reopening has been front of mind, and with the vaccine distribution now well underway, the return of the live events industry as we know it seems closer than ever. But as many of us know, this return won't just be flipping a switch. It'll be gradual as venues, promoters, talent, fans, and so on navigate what many have dubbed the new normal. Of course, plenty of events are already happening, albeit in modified capacity, and that's why I'm thrilled to be hosting this panel, which features 3 professionals from organizations that have led the way in safely returning. Their strategies to date and going forward can offer us a lot of lessons for others in the sector who might be strategizing their own returns. So with that said, I would like for my panelists to go around and introduce themselves, beginning with Angela.
Hello, good afternoon. Angela Lanza from Vinnick Sports Group. I am the Director of Event Marketing for both Amalie Arena and Yuengling Center in Tampa, Florida.
Great. And Kosha?
Kosha Irby, CMO for PBR.
Great. And Mark?
Mark Waguespack with ASM Global. Down in New Orleans at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, Smoothie King Center. Just want to share a fun fact about me. My first EAMC was actually in New Orleans in 2014. So, great experience and just a cool experience to kind of have it full circle and talk with everyone today.
Well, we're thrilled to have you all. Just to begin, obviously 2020 was just the seismic, crazy year. And I wanted to know if everybody could go through and just kind of say what your organizations have been up to the last few months and kind of, some of the programming that you've been getting back on track and rolling into 2021, what the kind of current state of affairs is at your various organizations. We can start with Angela or Kosha. Yeah.
All right. Well, PBR, we've been touring. We on Friday, March the 13th, we were in Duluth. We got the news that capacities are going to be limited. So we had an event without fans for that day. We shut down for roughly 41 days, and then we started bucking bulls again in Guthrie, Oklahoma in April, and we've been bucking bulls ever since. We've hosted about 20 events, 13 of those with fans. We're currently on the American Roots Tour. We're still touring, and that's where we are.
Cool. Also, in Tampa, Amalie Arena, we announced in December that we would be the temporary home of the Toronto Raptors. Simultaneous to that, we developed a Play It Safe campaign to kind of roll out with having fans in the building for those events. We also have kicked off our Tampa Bay Lightning season, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but we also have 2 events coming up, Mike Epps and Toby Mack in February.
Say, as a whole, ASM Global, they launched the Venue Shield initiative, which is the health and safety protocols. So, we worked that into our plan for the Saint season that we just wrapped up. That was successful. Ended a little early, but it was nice to have 2 additional playoff games in the building. We had the All-State Sugar Bowl in the building, the New Orleans Bowl. And then next door in the arena, we are hosting the New Orleans Pelicans at limited capacities.
So just to kind of hop right in, I wanted to open things up and discuss a little bit, with these events that all 3 of you have been involved in putting on over the last few months. Can we discuss a little bit kind of some of the strategies that have gone into it in terms of balancing your adherence to various public health guidelines, government regulations, while also, signaling to fans and to potentially, talent who's at that these are safe events and that, you're taking all the necessary precautions and the logistics that are required for that?
Yeah, so I mean, out the gate, we had to present a plan in order to even make these events happen. So, that was kind of the blueprint for everything behind the scenes. It's a very thick document, but compared to the forward-facing messaging, I think I'm fortunate because I have the power of the NFL and the NBA behind me to help with some of that messaging. So, they were great partners in creating a lot of assets as far as, know before you go videos, direct messaging with ticket holders, digital content that we pushed out, through our website. And, there was a whole process of informing the media and sending them information and just, trying to get as much out there as possible to build confidence around the events.
Yeah, I agree. I'll echo what Mark said. Communication is definitely key. We obviously rolled out what we call a Play It Safe campaign, which was pretty much letting everybody know how we were playing it safe, but also how they could play it safe as well. We did a ton of signage, as people I'm sure are working on, a lot of messaging. We have to tell everyone about cleansing policies and updates in general. It's a massive undertaking. We're all hands on deck from a marketing, operations, legal standpoint, just making sure that everybody coming into the building knows the policies and procedures, or potentially new things that we've added per an NBA or NHL rule to kind of get people started and just to feel safe as they were coming back into the building.
Yeah, similar to that, we took a similar approach. We developed what is called the Be Cowboy Safe program, which listed our back of house protocols, front of house protocols. And the thing that was challenging for us is we were actually going to other buildings. And so we would have to basically make our Be Cowboy Safe program a tech writer that we would send in advance to the buildings to make sure that they can adhere to our protocols to make sure that, one, we don't bring COVID into a market, or two, take it to another market. So it was pretty critical for that. And a lot of the things that Angela and Mark talked about were included on their behalf, but we took it a step further with thermal scanning. We made sure that the people that on their staffs that would be in contact with us were tested, part of our COVID protocol. And then from a consumer facing standpoint, one of the things that we drive with any venue that we visited or we're currently visiting is now called, it used to be driveway to driveway, and we've evolved that to driveway +3. And what we mean by that is the communication now starts 3 days out, right? Where we send out emails or have the venue sends out an email, just basically giving them a CDC questionnaire saying, have you come into contact with someone with COVID? Have you yourself been exposed to COVID or have COVID? And give them a chance to opt out of coming to our event, because obviously we don't want to bring COVID into the building. Subsequently, after the event, the +3 on the backside of that, because typically it takes about 3 days for it to incubate and for you to start to shed. We then send out another questionnaire with some venues to those patrons, just saying, hey, have you experienced any symptoms? And if so, let us know. And then if they do let us know, then we'll basically go into our trace protocols, which is part of our Be Cowboy Safe program, to notify everybody that was in contact or came into contact with that person that they need to either, one, quarantine, or two, go get tested just to make sure that they're clear of COVID. So the consumer experience from our perspective is one of those things that we've had to change, and we're relying on venues now a lot more to help us with that, whether it be trace protocols, the email campaigns, education, play it safe campaigns, Venue Shield, which is one of the things we combined with when we did our event in Sioux Falls. Is making sure that those two plans now align and become more cohesive than the whole, this is our set of rules and that set of rules and all that. So I think that from a promoter standpoint, it's evolved tremendously.
I think that's a really interesting point that you bring up about, going from market to market. And that's something that is more specific to your role with PBR than what we see with Mark and Angela, who are more based out of specific venues. But obviously they interact with that end on the other side, because they're going to have various tours moving through the venues and stuff. I wanted to know if everybody could kind of, and maybe you might want to kick off this discussion, Kosha, just kind of about this kind of patchwork of regulations and the way that different venues approach the process, and what has that been like going from market to market, and kind of, obviously everybody wants to put on successful events and safe events, but kind of navigating this ever shifting sands almost of what's expected. And I'm sure everybody does it a little bit differently.
Yeah, being on the promoter side, and specifically a touring promoter, it's just the wild, wild west right now. We tease all the time that every venue, every market, every municipality, every state has its own set of rules, regulations, and protocols that we got to jump through in order to put our event on. Some states are better than others. Some states are more lenient than others, but every state, every municipality, every city, every venue has its own set of protocols that we gotta work through. And so that's been tough. And we always say, I've actually made more friendships, or created more friendships, I would say more frenemies, with these local health administrators than we ever have. Because you got to realize that for the past, whatever number of years that person's been in that role, they've been able to just rubber stamp it. The health administrator never got involved in issuing a permit for our event. And now you got a guy or a young lady that's have the weight of COVID weighing on their shoulders, saying whether or not you can have an event. And that's a lot of pressure for them. And so you got to educate them and walk them through the process and ensure them that your protocols are top notch, and that you're going to try to protect the venue and the market from COVID. And so it's just a new conversation and a new wrinkle that we now have to introduce into our approval process. And then once you get past that person, now you got to turn around and get a city council on board in some cases. Sometimes we've had to actually petition to the governor in order to get him or her to approve us coming into their market. And then you get all of the legislative stuff done. Then you got to sit down and work with the venue and make sure that the protocols align with your protocols. And so it is a patchwork, and it's tough. I think the beautiful part of being in a venue that, you could build your reputation because it's the same events, the Pelicans and those guys, but a touring promoter having to deal with a different set of rules every week, I won't lie, it's not the best time I'm having in my life right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, adding to that, it's, even the local and state guidelines for us are changing daily. Friday, we're about to change phases again. So we're about to go into phase 2, which means we can have more fans in the building for the Pelicans games, which is great, but that affects our, staffing plan. Even going back into the current phase 1, that happened, I think, 2 days before one of the Saints playoff games. So, and then you have to look at the new phase guidelines and decipher what changed and what's different. And, and the new guidelines, they had a new line item that was specific to alcohol sales for indoor sporting events, which wasn't in the previous time we were in phase 1. So, that means 2 days before, we just found out we can't have alcohol sales in the building. So, that affects our messaging with, the patrons. I'm running around putting up signs in the, every suite, in the Superdome, in the Smoothie King Center. It's just constant adapting and kind of rolling with it.
What the heck does booze have to do with COVID?
People start getting wild at these Saints games, man.
They
take their mask off, they start screaming.
It is New Orleans now, as opposed to throwing beads.
It's a little harder to judge that 6 feet, when you're
exactly.
I guess.
No, but I think, Mark, you hit it perfectly with the word adapt, right? Like everything is changing every single day. I know in Tampa, just after the holidays, our cases went up. So what we did internally with VSG was we actually decided to pause off all fans in the building. So, here comes the Toronto Raptors. We're playing some games. Everybody is coming. We see people in the building. It's super exciting. We've worked so hard on this Play It Safe campaign, but then we want to do the thing that's responsible in our area, which is pause fans from coming to the building. Just let them, hang tight. We'll get back to you. We're actually making a decision in the next week or so, right before Super Bowl is in town, to see if we can unpause fans. So we'll see how that goes. But it's definitely something that you have to do. You have to adapt as COVID is changing everything, and it's happening every single day.
Hold on. Let me challenge. I want to challenge that thought though a little bit. And you're absolutely 100% correct that we got to adapt. But I think as professionals too, we also got to go on the offensive now, right? A lot of the information that we have is pretty final, right? It's not, COVID, unless they come up with another strain, COVID 23 or whatever the hell the number is going to be. We now know what we're dealing with. And so I don't want, we keep talking about adapting, we're letting freaking COVID win, right? Like, let's start figuring out the processes that are going to allow our buildings and our patrons to feel safe and get them back in. And I just want to make sure that as we talk and we go through this, that we understand that it's our duty as promoters, event marketers, venue managers, and whatnot, to try to figure out proactive strategies now, because we know the end game. We know where we're trying to get to, and let's get there, as opposed to letting, people who have no clue how the live event industry work dictate our terms. Anyway, that's my soapbox for the day. Thanks for listening, everyone. Let's keep going. Sorry, Eric, back to you.
No, I'm curious. I want to kind of drill down on that, because I am curious about what might be some proactive ways that we could, what might be some proactive strategies that event professionals could implement going forward.
I jump in right now. One of the things that we're trying to advocate and we're trying to have become consistent across venues is thermal scanning, right? The first line of defense in this thing is going to be thermal scanning. If you have a fever, typically you have an infection, maybe COVID, maybe chickenpox, maybe German measles, maybe the mumps. I don't know. But you got something going on. And so we could figure out a way to say that we can isolate those people, get them triaged and back into the proper habitat, whether it's a hospital, their home, their car, whatever. That's the first line of defense, and that we can keep going forward. The second thing that we can start to look at is, limiting the human to human contact when it comes in that. So if your venue doesn't have the opportunity for cashless transactions, here's a chance to adapt to get to cashless transactions, to become using more digital currency in some shape, form, or fashion. 3 is going to be trace protocols. It used to be one of those things where getting the phone number at the box office or the email at the box office was a joke for a lot of those window transaction personnel. Now that is critical. So we got to make sure that we drive home to let fans know that we take trace protocols seriously. I literally just made those 3 up off the top of my head. Granted, it is in our program, but what I'm getting at is there are a lot of opportunities out there where we can now make these things part of our normal standard operating procedures that not only allow for us to get some consumer confidence right now to come into our venues or visit our shows, but it's going to protect us from the next epidemic, because take my word for it, there will be another one, whether it's some case of crazy smallpox or something. Some dude in some country is going to eat a bat again, and we're going to be back into this same struggle, and we need to have the protocols in place.
No, I totally agree. And I think as event marketers, as long as we're storytelling that in the right way, so that people are 100% comfortable, I mean, then we're doing our jobs correctly.
Yeah, and I think, looking ahead, there is a question mark, and I don't necessarily think some of these protocols are going to disappear in the fall of 21. So, these things are going to become more common occurrence. And I mean, I remember when we went to clear bag policy, and that was such a big deal. And I mean, you look at the experience now, it's you get the clear bag, you go through the walk-through metal detector, and now you're getting a thermal scan. It's like, but I guess adding to like the opportunities side of this thing, from the contactless kind of transactions to the mobile ticketing, I think a lot of these things may have been kind of in the pipeline for people. It's like, like we were kind of like half and half all mobile tickets. It kind of depended on the event. So, now we're 100% mobile ticketing. That may change when, based off a concert or something. But Saints and Pelicans, it was a good time to roll this new initiative out. Even just thinking of like other things that we've talked about is, the smoking policy in our building. It was kind of, we let people go out in this area and then they came back in, so we were able to kind of reevaluate that based off of COVID policy. So, you can look at other things and use it as opportunities to kind of maybe push things through, like clear bags or
use it as an opportunity. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody on this, I guess you call it a call virtual thing, has suffered in some shape, form, or fashion because of COVID, right? And so, everybody is going to have a negative story. I've lost relatives. We've lost money. Damn sure not making a lot of money in EBITDA right now because it's just not there. But we aren't going to stop. And I think that as we go through this process, we need to use COVID as an opportunity to launch new things, right? And prime example, I was talking to our merch guy because we tried to go totally cashless for our merch stand, at least through Legends. And it's working to some degree. But the amount of our shrink that has been reduced because we're not dealing with cash anymore is significant, like significant. Granted, I need to realize that some of the people we hire just flat out can't count. However, it is significant. And so when you start to look at these little nuggets that are going to add to the bottom line, like once again, it's just a no-brainer that we start to try to adopt these things into while we have this smoke screen to get it in. Consumers are going to be fine, because if you can tell the consumer that, hey, just by going through this thermal scanner, I can ensure that you have a better chance of being protected while you're at our venue. And if someone looks at you and says no, granted, some people will, because let's not go down the mask debate again. But if you have people that say no, I don't want them in our show anyway, because I'm probably doing something they have no business. And so let's use this as an opportunity to try to make the industry better for the consumer. I think the consumer is going to win when this is all said and done.
Well, we've got a question coming in from the audience that I think kind of fits perfectly here, just in terms of the degree of compliance that you all have seen at your various events, in terms of how successful has the messaging for given events been in making sure that patrons are abiding by all the compliance, because obviously that's going to be a key part of bringing back consumer confidence. People are going to want to hear that people were actually abiding by the guidelines and all that.
I deal with a bunch of cowboys. They do whatever they want to do anyway. The funniest thing, I tell this story all the time. We did a wear your damn mask social media post. And typically on a post, we get about 5,000-7,000 likes and about maybe 80 comments. This post got like 17,000 likes and had like 300 to 400 comments within the first 4 minutes. It was just a polarizing issue. Regurgitate that same post here probably 8 months later, crickets. because it's now people are kind of accepting of it. It's not as polarizing as it used to be. You're still going to have some guys that are going to either be so eager to wear the mask and so eager to not wear the mask. And you're not going to get rid of that, but that's a 5 and 5%, right? 10%, 90% of the people typically adhere. They're going to come in, they're going to follow social rules, they're going to follow venue rules, they're going to follow promoter rules and get on with the event. And that's what we found in our deals. I mean, and so as long as local mandates suggest that, we're going to follow that. And typically most people, we have not had to eject someone because they haven't worn a mask. It's just not been a thing.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I think the mask policy is the biggest thing. Obviously, if someone's coming down the concourse and they have a, drink in their hand, they're going to take their mask off and try and drink that. And of course, we shut it down right away. You cannot be in certain areas with your mask off and things like that. But I will say the other thing is, no matter how many social distancing stickers you put in a line, people still just go right up to the person in front of them in a concession line. So it's definitely a learning process. I think people are aware of what they should be doing as far as washing their hands and sanitation stations and doing all of that. It's just those little reminders, because they're in a new space, that they still have to do the 6-foot rule, or they do have to have their masks on a certain area in the arena, because they're coming back and they're seeing what rules they can get away with, right? But as long as you have your staff, reminding people and having signs up and different things, at least, you give them a warning and see where it goes. But I personally haven't seen a situation where anyone has been really difficult or really upset about following the rules.
This kind of goes hand in hand with another question that was just written in. We just had our first concert since closing. We have all the protocols in place, including new seats that lock unused seats to keep pods of seats separate from each other. However, several people did what they wanted and stood in front of those locked seats. Any idea of how to keep people from moving to those seats?
Stronger security.
Yeah, we had event staff at the top of almost every section that would monitor this. But, going back on the compliance with the mask and stuff, I think it was better than expected. And I think, people get the drill quickly, and it's kind of a weird experience as well. You're all nervous having your first event. You're like, I got to monitor social, people are going to be pissed, this and that. And then at the end of the day, you look around and there's 3,000 people in a stadium that holds 70,000 people. And, you're used to a big congestion of people. So, I mean, our first couple games, we were looking around the concession lines and we're like, okay, well, this is kind of working out for the time being. So I don't know. And it'll be interesting to see how that is once things start ramping back up and there's more people in the building. But
yes, I also think it's going to be interesting going from a sporting event where the lights are up to a concert where the lights are down, because obviously you can't maybe see as well if someone is wearing a mask, if they're in the right seat. I mean, we can kind of tell right now when we look that, someone's in some sort of wrong seat, right? Because it's not as distant as your eye wants it to be. And to Mark's point, you just have to have ushers or, your staff kind of watching and actually telling people if they're in the wrong seats or if they're, moving around or unlocking seats, that sort of thing. Don't be afraid to get involved, because it will only be worse if, they stay in that location. But hopefully it just gets better and better as people do hear that, people are monitoring it.
Right.
Even, on the ejection policy, we did have a limited number of ejections occur. And one thing that was interesting was, it's like, I think seemed as if after they left, they may have contacted some type of media, because they reached out to us saying, can you confirm that this happened? What was the case? So, conversations were held between us and the Saints. How do we want to address this? And, we determined that it was a positive thing. They weren't in compliance with the rules. So, that's what happens. you know, if you're not following the policy. So, you know, it was a strategic response that we saw as a positive to show people that it's real. You know, these things are in place. We've got health and safety people in the building checking to make sure that we're compliant with these procedures so we can have these events. And, you know, we're not risking letting that go.
Nor should you.
So we've kind of discussed peripherally this idea of all the changes that are going to be at venues, whether they're to do with COVID, you know, specifically in terms of testing and social distancing and masks, that type of thing, or, you know, kind of more secondary relation to COVID, you know, with the cashless concessions, mobile ticketing, all that. So I just wanted to know, obviously, a lot of people are going to be rusty. I'm going to be rusty coming back to events after COVID. And, you know, a lot of people are going to be rusty. It also is going to be a little bit different than they remembered, maybe even a lot different than they remembered. How do you go about, you know, making sure that you don't have these, you know, log jams at concessions or at the gates or whatever, you know, being able to effectively message to people these changes that, by the way, are going to be probably changing every couple months for the near future as restrictions and things change and technology changes?
I mean, I don't run a venue, but once again, I would use it as an opportunity to try to introduce new services, right? You know, I look at the guys out at Levi Stadium when they linked everything together via an app, and you can order, and it lets you know when your food is going to be ready at a specific concession stand, or how stacked restrooms are. Once again, like, you know, these things don't necessarily cost a lot of money, and I know that everybody right now is crunched, furloughed, and everything else, but let's use it as an opportunity to make the venues more smarter. I don't know if that's a word, because more smarter makes me sound more dumber. But anyway, you know, let's try to figure out a way to expedite that. Just expedite the integration of new tech, right? The second thing is going to be, hell, practice. You know, and the third thing, here's the thing that we noticed with all the venues we went through. We thought they were going to be kind of rusty. We thought we were going to have like a log jam at security and all this. People are eager to work, and people are eager to create memories that fans can go home with. And when you have that type of motivation in this first iteration of your events, you're going to be surprised at that quote unquote 8, 10, 12, 15, whatever the minimum wage dollar worker is, how the level of service is going to freaking be through the roof just because they are happy that they are back and doing something that they like to do. And you'd be amazed at, you know, the wand guy. You think the wand guy is probably, you know, the most, that guy hates everybody because he has the wanding job, right? He hates everybody, hates the world. I never forget, we were in Sioux Falls at the Premier Center, and, you know, I'm kind of out being nosy because I want to see the same things. I got the same concerns. And this guy's out here, he had a mask on, he's fully in all of his PPE, and he's singing. Like, he's like, come on through, shows, you know, like he created so much fun about it. And so when I see that type of stuff, and it trickles down to that guy who has a wand, he has nothing to do with our promotion, has nothing to do with the show, but he made going through a metal detector scenario one of the better parts of our event. I think you're going to see that a lot more. Don't underestimate the human spirit. Don't underestimate these people and what these events mean to them. So as we go through this, we start talking about rustiness. Nah, man, I don't believe that. We're pros, bro.
I do really miss the wand guy, I must say. I haven't thought about that for a few months.
Better that than the COVID guy that sticks the thing down my nose. I'd rather have the wand guy than him right now.
There you go. Pick, you know,
it's all
relative.
Great example. It's like, if I see that wand guy, I'm going to go take pictures of that guy. I'm going to go film that guy. I'm going to use that guy on social media. You know, people can relate to that guy. People can see the joy of events, and, you know, it gives them hope. And also from another standpoint of things, it's like, I'm documenting the journey into the building. You know, I've got the graphics that say, you know, mask required, thermal scans. How many times am I going to post the same thermal scan graphic without it, you know, everyone unfollowing me because they've seen the same thing over and over again? So, you know, documenting your staff holding up the signs and this and that gives you more fuel to not only, get the word out about, the new policies, but it just kind of creates more variety with your digital presence too.
But as a promoter who has to come to these venues, I also want to caution against, as you kind of create your communication plans, your marketing plans, your promotion plans to say that, hey, we're safe, we're making these protocols, we're introducing these new procedures and all that. Do not, please, for my livelihood, because I depend on your venue to sell tickets, do not portray or present your venue as this sterile environment, right? This hospital type of environment. I literally hate when somebody in a hotel or whatever say, we triple cleaned. It's like, you didn't clean before, we've got bigger issues to talk about. But what I'm getting at is, I think that as all of the people in the virtual world right now, if you have say over how you present your building and your rollout plans and your consumer experience plans, make it fun. Make it so that people are excited to come back. Don't come back to this. Yes, we're going to have, N95 filters on top of every one of our vent holes. And now we're going to make sure that you can't touch another human, and you're going to have to go through a special gate at a certain time, and you're going to have to park 85 yards away from your normal parking scenarios. That stuff doesn't sound like fun. So as you do portray that, please try to find the colorful and positive language that goes along with that, so that people can then say, this is going to be a cool experience versus I'm going to go watch bull riding and I got to park 85 feet away, get my nose swabbed, walk through this guy that's singing, listening to a freaking metal detector song. And then, and it just seems like a bad experience. And so let's just all agree that we're going to make this thing the best thing ever when we do start to roll out our welcome back plans. This should be welcome back, welcome home with a hug, not, hey, come through and we're gonna kind of, you don't want to be that cliquish, sketchy friend. Certain people in high school were like that. We don't want to be in that club.
That's fantastic. No, I completely agree. I mean, as marketers and kind of as you're building your plans, and it's an all hands on deck thing, and you have a legal, weighing in on certain language that you're supposed to have and this and that, like, we're able to have fun with it. I mean, that's a perfect example of, different things that you can be posting on a social media versus your know before you go email versus where you have your website click to that has all of the nitty gritty, language that you have to have. You can obviously have fun with it. So definitely, I totally agree with that.
And, chiming off of that, developing that marketing campaign to even just reintroduce your venue back into the market. We're kind of developing the look and feel, and we're kind of looking at the three categories, the now message, the leading up message, and then kind of back hosting events. So we're kind of tailoring each phase of this campaign, based off of the environment around us. It's just going to be such a different environment, I feel like, in the fall, looking ahead with what could potentially be on the calendar. We just got word that there's 4 major music festivals in New Orleans in October, every weekend. So we're going to be competing with that. So how do we market not only the events, but the venue itself and get people excited to coming back to that? Because there's only so much disposable income that you can kind of tap into, and everyone's going to be fighting for it. And if you're like me, your marketing budget's going to be pretty slim. So just looking ahead to how are we creative with the assets we have? How do we allocate them? We're looking at ways that we shift things from the time being into the fall, so we have a larger bank at that time.
But Mark, I will argue you start today, bro. Like, you start telling that story that your venue is going to be fun and is going to be better than the other, don't call them crapshoots. I don't know the festivals, but you got to start laying that groundwork today and still telling that narrative. We're getting better. It's going to be a great opportunity. We're getting better. It's going to be a great opportunity. We're getting better. It's going to be a great opportunity, because a lot of these festivals and everybody racing back in the fourth quarter of this year just to try to make EBITDA, they're going to be late to the game, right? They're not going to have that repetition in order that you have the opportunity to do because you're currently hosting some events. And so if you do have that, and even if you don't have events, just make sure that you're sharing with other people what you're doing. Just put it out there and then keep reiterating how you're making whatever you're doing better. You're at least going to start with a solid foundation of trust versus, like if my buddy sends me, if I go to a Panda Express or PF Chang's, I just want some Chinese food now. But if I go to either one of those right now, I trust that they're going to take those necessary protocols. If my buddy calls me right now and says he's about to have a barbecue in his backyard, nah, dog, not going. So it's that type of thing. If you could build that type of trust up with your consumers, you're going to just have a better opportunity.
Well, and too, oh, go ahead.
I think you hit the nail on the head. That's kind of this part of it is the establishing the trust. Am I necessarily running web banner ads for a concert in 22 right now? That's kind of like your barbecue example. We're in phase 1 right now. People are struggling, furloughed. So it's like, how do you take that into consideration and not seem tone deaf, but also continue to put yourself out there?
Oh, absolutely. Plus, I was going to say, speaking to the media side as well, you can use the media to help tell your story. I mean, you can have them go through the whole entry protocol, on camera and kind of tell their guests, here's how you're going to come to Amalie Arena now. And don't forget, here's, the 5 things you need to know about entering the building, or there's a policy for bags that's new, or this, that, and the other. And you can definitely work with your local media to kind of ease that a little bit so that, they're not being hit with another email or another, picture on social media about, washing your hands or something like that.
And I'm gonna put American Airlines Arena, right? Miami. Yeah, I'm putting them on the spot. This whole freaking dog sniffing thing was freaking genius. Whoever came up with that, I don't even know if the dog can really do it or not. I don't care. I really don't. But here's what they did. That was genius. One, they introduced a technology that nobody else was talking about, which allowed for them to break through the clutter. 2, they opened themselves up to a totally different audience of pet lovers and dog lovers who believe that dogs are the best thing ever, and now can go out and put themselves over. And so if they're not going to Purina or Nestle or whatever, trying to sell some doggy treat sponsorships, or trying to have a dog in the park or a dog in the arena day group sale come up soon, they're missing an opportunity. But what I'm getting at is those little things are building confidence, because it just shows that American Airlines Arena is working to try to create a safe habitat in a fun way. And that's at the end of the day, unless one of those dogs bite you, that's genius. And I think that if more venues start to try to be more proactive like that, we are going to have a softer runway than, hey guys, come in, don't mind the cameras, don't mind the guy singing. It's just we got to try to create a better front porch for ourselves.
We've had a couple questions roll in about food and beverage. I want to kind of just synthesize them here. The first one being in terms of just pure sales. Have you seen decrease in sales? First, say that through some of our reporting with regarding the NFL, we've heard that per cap it's up. Obviously, across the raw figure is down because much fewer fans, but we've heard that per cap it's up. But I do want to hear your input about your respective events in terms of food and beverage sales, and then also just kind of lumped in with that, what are your thoughts about pre-packaging tickets, swag, and food and beverage to create more cashless engagement, increased pre-sales, and decreased event logistics and cost?
Yes to all.
Yes to all.
any package
I am
to generate more revenue, I think makes sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And have you seen generally strong per capita sales of food and bev at your events?
Our merch per caps have pretty much actually increased by a few points. Can't necessarily speak to all of our buildings that we went to in terms of their per caps, but we haven't had anybody crying poverty. But to your point, you're absolutely right. I think that this is an opportunity for us to create more bundles. One of the things that we're trying to do right now with our product is create an opportunity where the fan has to do nothing but show up and sit down. Like this is the new paradigm of consumer experience that we're trying to create here at PBR. And our team is trying to work to say, how can we link and here's our problem. Now, if you have a venue and you're dealing with your same team and same fans every day, it's going to be a little bit easier for you. But for us, we're trying to figure out a way where the fan buys their ticket and they show up, they sit down, food can be delivered to them, merch can be delivered to them. Their VIP experience is going to be near a seat that they bought, so that all they have to do is show up and sit down. And so if you start to try to simplify the experience for the consumer and then reverse engineer that, whether it's bundling, whether it's a one seat, one pod, whether it's, allowing them to order their food with their ticket, allowing them to order parking with their ticket and pick the exact parking space that they want. Like, that's the sophistication I think we're going to get to, because we're going to have, it's kind of like the old, if I can check everything I want in designing my room, I know I'm going to like that room, right? As opposed to saying, I just want a 2-bedroom with a bath, right? You're going to get different paint job. Sink's going to be somewhere you don't want it. Kitchen's going to be somewhere you don't want it. But if I can sit here and say, I'm going to plan my experience from driveway to driveway, +3 in our case, and allows for us to show up, and I know that my experience is curated perfectly for me, it's going to allow for all that front porch effort that you've been now laying the groundwork for to even have bigger dividends, because that person curated their experience. The safety aspect is now kind of ingrained into their brain, and you got a better opportunity for success. So Eric, I think that's why I said yes to all. I think all of those things needs to be taken into consideration.
Something, we had another question come in. Are you having your staff and athletes tested regularly? I kind of want to just expand the purview of that in terms of just, we've talked so much about the consumer facing aspect of this, but I want to know if you all could just kind of share your experience with the, behind the scenes, whether it's the people working the lighting or working with the food stand, or, people bringing in equipment, whatever it may be, the athletes, performers. How are you going about messaging to those people various COVID protocols and safety protocols?
I'm going to jump in. It's easy for us. No test, no pay. For example, I'm heading to Okeechobee, Florida here as soon as I get off of this, and I have to take our at-home kit test. I will do a personally for you guys, but it takes like 10 minutes. We only have 12, and so I don't want to start crying if I'm positive. But I'm 62 for COVID tests so far, and all been negative. And so we take it very seriously. Everybody tests every week for our tour. You can't, without a negative test, you're not allowed into the bubble.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. As we announced Toronto Raptors, we obviously had a lot of NBA rules and regulations that came down. So we did a whole virtual staff training on all things that we were doing in the building per COVID protocols, policies, and procedures, making sure everybody was aware of what that looked like. We also went through a full education, if you will, of our building and where we would have our certain zones. So we actually have, per again, those rules. And now on the NHL side as well, we have a red zone, a yellow zone, and a green zone, and you have to have a certain credential to be in those zones. If you're in the red zone, you have to get tested, and you have to be negative so many times prior to the event. Once we're in red zone, if you will, and we all get a notification on our phones. It's actually funny, we get a text and email and a phone call sometimes to let us know we're in red zone. So there's no excuses for people to not know. You have to not be in certain areas at certain times. So it was a lot of education, but it's, obviously all good things when you have different policies and procedures going into place.
Yeah, and to touch on that, the athletes are constantly being tested outside of the facility, but it depends where you're working in the building, whether or not you will get a COVID test. Everyone has to take, the health questionnaire and get the temperature scan. But if you are working, say, in the red zone, yes, you are required to get tested. And also, there's certain areas where you can't necessarily have social distancing based just depending on the setup, like a command post or a production room or something like that, where, I mean, you can put up plexi and stuff like that, but it is still a lot of people in one room because all the equipment's in there. So, those types of people also get tested.
Man, I wish I would have invested in plexiglass a few years ago. I'll be rich.
It's crazy kind of seeing all the different things that people started buying up a lot of, about a year ago, and it's like, okay, I should have had stock in masks or whatever, we obviously we only have so much time left, but we're gonna try and get in a couple more questions here. I wanted to just, in general, I'm sure it's been a learning curve. Nobody's perfect, and I wanted to know if you could share kind of what's some advice that you might have for, all of our audience watching, just in terms of, like what's something that went differently than expected, or that you might approach differently going forward. What are kind of some lessons that people might be able to draw from your early experiences in this quote unquote new normal?
Well, I guess, one experience we had is leading up to it, we weren't really sure the number of fans. I think we were looking at like 20,000, 15,000. So we're, hustling to prep the building, entire building, plexi, all kinds of stuff everywhere. And then, it comes to the fact that we were only allowed to have, well, first we had no fans in the building. Great. Then we had 3,000 fans in the building. So, we're preparing a entire stadium for this. So that was kind of a little bit of a learning process for us. It was very hard to judge what the possibility was. So, and we were going a million miles an hour to get that ready. But, on the flip side, we were able to then take some of those elements, bring them over to the arena, reuse them for the Pelicans, take that experience and be more prepared when those events came through. Still coming through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say, it's difficult to go from fans to no fans, but to that point, you do get to at least get yourself ready. You do a lot of prep. Give yourself enough time to do all that prep. I know nobody likes doing things last minute, but sometimes that's the way it happens. And try and document everything that you possibly can. We said it on this call already, but if this happens again, when this happens again, obviously we'll be in a better place, and we'll have all the protocols kind of at least thought about, and just think of your building and how people run through it, and definitely put all of the policies and procedures in place that you can to keep everybody happy.
I echo both of those, but I also add that the learning experience that I treasured the most from this entire thing is we were never really alone. Everybody is going through some similar scenario, and it's not blasphemy to call those people and say, yo, how are you dealing with this? I got friends on from WWE and the Globetrotters, and one of those things that I take pride in, at one point, a lot of buildings had a lot of staff on furlough. And, we were talking with Nicole, the booker, Dennis at Globies, and everybody else to say, okay, if we can stack our events for 4 straight weekends, could you bring people back off of furlough in order to justify opening the building? Because they couldn't do it for just one event. So I the thing that I thought that so many people were going to retrench and be siloed and protect their COVID plans and whatnot. And I was freaking wrong. Like, this industry and our little peer group here, our little brotherhood, sisterhood that we formed, we're all going through the same struggles. We're all trying to reopen. We're all trying to put smiles on our consumers' faces. We're all trying to get Nicole Cries to bring an event to one of our buildings. And that alone showed me the strength of this community. That alone showed me that we have enough brain power and intestinal fortitude to get to the other side of this, as long as we keep those practices going. But here's the promise we all got to make. When this shit is over, we can't revert back to the old thing. Keep sharing, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I compete for dates and I compete for higher grosses, but at the end of the day, I want you to win just like I want to win. So, but like that I think, long answer to a short question, man, but it really is a fact that we should all be trying to share, and we're all willing to do it.
Well, first of all, that's been a hugely heartening thing that I've seen in my reporting. I'm report a lot about NEVA and talking to kind of those folks over there, you know, just saying how their whole thing is that they're fiercely independent and competitive in the same markets and all that stuff. But when this happened, it was like, okay, like, let's, you know, we're all really smart. We're all really good at what we do. Let's pool our kind of resources and figure out how we can get all through this together. And then we can go and be competing about the hot, you know, rock band or whatever that's coming through town and who's gonna snag that date. It's something kind of just on that note, and I think that this is a good note to kind of wrap things up on. We've talked about so many advancements, whether it's, you know, logistical or COVID related or kind of, you know, technology. Moving forward, this is sort of interesting. I was talking to somebody who was saying that they'd implemented new HVAC stuff in their venue to deal with air purification around COVID, and talking about how, well, going forward, that's going to make the whole situation better just in normal cold and flu season. You know, there's all these advancements that can be applied to elsewhere in the sector. And I just want to know, going forward, what advancements do you think that live events professionals like have to make sure to keep in place? That there might be the temptation to say COVID's gone, we're going to cut this out, but what do you think really will need to be just, you know, cemented in there as this is part of live now?
Man, it's a great question.
I mean, I would think I think various iterations of scanning is going to be one of those things that's going to stay. I think facial recognition is something that's going to come down the line. Airports are using it right now, and I typically study what airports are doing, because what airports do, if you ever really notice, the rest of the retail environment start to adopt, specifically live events. They deal with letting people in and out 24/7, 365. And so if you ever wanted to have a test case in ingress, egress, airports were a good study model. So I think that's going to happen. I think cashless is going to become a thing of the future. And once again, it just helps us with shrinks, and nobody wants to deal with coins anymore. So I think that the coin is going to eventually go away. I do believe that I think the whole triage and trace protocols are going to have to be strengthened with a lot of venues, no longer just bringing a BLM or just a normal EMT on site. I think that you're going to have to probably have some infectious disease type specialist or someone with that certification on site. Same thing with trace protocol. I think that after venues clear, I mean, even if a crime happened, it could be, you know, I don't think we got to keep thinking of this as infectious disease, but if a crime would have happened and it happened in a certain section, you know, take any venue in Philadelphia, you know, no knock to anybody from Philly. If you're from Philly, I love you. If we're bringing an event there, but right now, hey, you guys are dangerous in the stands. But what I'm getting at is, whenever after Philadelphia, guaranteed to have a fight in the stands, but that trace protocol can allow for security to go back and call everybody that was around that could have witnessed it and provide firsthand accounts. And so I think that the one thing I don't want us to get short-sighted on is trying to have these adaptations or these advancements be linked just to infectious diseases. Try to find overlapping uses for them across the board. And I think that you'll have more worldwide acceptance.
Yeah, I also want to add, obviously mobile ticketing was on its way anyway, but I think across the board, I think Mark may have mentioned that earlier, but where it was, you know, obviously used heavily in sport, but then also certain concerts and events, I think across the board, it's going to be, you know, obviously the new norm of having everything on your phone, which is great, and contactless. I agree with the cashless and, you know, different bag policies that we might put in place right now. Maybe we, you know, continue that just so it's not another thing that people are coming through checkpoints with. Also, like the pre-ordering of either VIP experiences or food and beverage things, or ordering from your seat, picking it up. I mean, I hope that all of that stays. I think it's definitely something that's been a little bit more innovative right now. And I'm sure as all of the companies and technologies and everything kind of take off, it's only going to get better.
Definitely the mobile experience, you know, because there's a lot of growth potential in there from, you know, augmented reality type apps, and, you know, there's all kinds of development in that forefront. But maybe it's just me. Maybe hand sanitizers, you know, like I feel like I may be slightly addicted to it. I see one and I like have to do it. But even like, I think even some hygiene protocols that it's not like they were lacking, but we had to reevaluate them. They become the new norm. It's something behind the scenes that you may not necessarily think too much of, that easily just transitions into something that it becomes second habit and doesn't ever go away.
Well, we are at the hour. Before we wrap, I just wanted to see if anybody had any last minute, just anything that we didn't cover that was like especially front of mind that you felt was really crucial to anybody watching this at home.
I'm just going to go. It has nothing to do with anybody else right now. I want to be a little selfish and thank my team. I'm pretty sure they're watching because I probably made them. But I don't get a chance to tell them thank you publicly in front of a lot of people. And my team is one of the best teams in the business. They're pretty much one of the best teams in the world in Mexico. And I'm proud of them. I love them. That's it for me.
Yeah, definitely. The event services and operations team here just shine through all this. It's my end dealing with the marketing and messaging. I have it easy compared to all the stuff that they had to go through and the new protocols and hoops that they jumped through. So kudos to them, and strong team really goes a long way with this.
Absolutely. All hands on deck. Everybody has been so responsive during this time to just make everything better. And you have so much teamwork in it, and it's great to see. Obviously, we're all really close as it is, but when you have a project that you're working on and you get all this response because people are so excited to just get back to live events, it rekindles your romance with it. So it's been fantastic.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I hope that everybody watching learned something, and I'm just, as a fan, looking forward to seeing how everyone applies this across all their events and venues in all various markets, and as this industry kind of bounces back from what was a truly unusual year, but hopefully we've all learned from it, and the industry will emerge even stronger from ever going forward. So, thank you everybody for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.